In this video, we'll walk you through 7 proven methods of emotional healing, plus lifestyle shifts that support lasting growth. Each is backed by research, experience, and timeless wisdom. But more importantly, each has the power to restore something deeply human: peace of mind, resilience, and hope. We all carry pain that doesn't show on the outside. Maybe it's the heartbreak that still echoes years later. Maybe it's the quiet ache of regret or the sharp sting of betrayal. These hidden wounds travel with us, shaping how we see ourselves and how we connect with the world. And yet, most of the time, we push them down and pretend we've moved on. But here's the truth. Unhealed pain doesn't disappear just because we ignore it. It lingers, reshaping our choices, our relationships, and even our health. That's why healing is not a luxury, it's a necessity. Healing doesn't mean erasing the past. It means reclaiming your present. It's the art of taking your story, with all its cracks and scars, and weaving it back into wholeness. When people talk about healing and pain, they're really talking about freedom. The freedom to live without carrying yesterday's burdens into tomorrow. Unhealed pain is like walking through life with invisible chains. You can still move, but never as freely as you could. Many people underestimate the weight of emotional scars, thinking they can just get over it. But ignoring pain doesn't free us, it traps us. Healing matters because pain doesn't stay neatly locked away in the past. It shows up in the way you flinch at love, in the way you distrust joy, in the way you silence your own needs. Left unattended, emotional pain hardens into patterns that shape entire lives. When we begin #healing, we don't erase the past. We transform our relationship with it. Healing matters because it restores energy once spent on guarding wounds. It gives us back focus, creativity, and presence. It matters because it reconnects us to others. Pain isolates, but healing builds bridges. Think of healing as repairing a broken vase with gold. The cracks don't vanish, but they become part of a stronger, more beautiful whole. That's what it means to heal emotional pain. Not to pretend it never existed, but to use it as a path toward resilience and wholeness. The cost of unhealed pain is not always obvious. On the surface, you may appear strong and functional, but beneath, the scars often leak into daily life in ways we don't recognize until much later. Unhealed emotional pain shows up in subtle but destructive ways. It keeps you repeating unhealthy relationship patterns, attracting partners who mirror your old wounds. It creates sudden anger over small triggers because your nervous system is still protecting itself from past threats. It can even manifest as physical illness. Chronic stress, insomnia, and fatigue are often silent companions of emotional scars. Perhaps the greatest cost is how unhealed pain robs you of possibility. You may avoid love because you fear loss. You may silence your dreams because failure once hurt too much. This quiet avoidance narrows your life, shrinking your world until safety becomes a prison. Facing pain may feel terrifying, but ignoring it comes at a higher price: the loss of who you could become. Choosing healing is choosing freedom. It's the decision to stop letting yesterday's wounds shape tomorrow's life. Have you ever noticed how pain multiplies when your mind replays the same memory on a loop? Mindfulness meditation is like pressing pause on that inner storm. At its core, mindfulness is about noticing without judgment. Instead of drowning in thoughts like, "Why did this happen?" or "I'll never heal," you anchor your attention to the breath, to the present moment. This simple act interrupts the cycle of rumination. Science backs it up. Mindfulness reduces activity in the amygdala, the brain's fear center, and strengthens areas linked to emotional regulation. But beyond the science, the value is emotional. The first time you realize you can watch a painful thought without being swallowed by it, you taste freedom. Mindfulness doesn't erase pain, but it changes how you hold it. Imagine pain as a stormy ocean. Mindfulness doesn't stop the waves, but it teaches you to float. That skill alone can transform the entire journey of healing. With practice, mindfulness builds resilience, creating space between stimulus and response. It teaches you that you are not your pain. You are the sky, vast and unbroken, in which even the darkest storms eventually pass. Some pains feel too heavy to say out loud. Journaling gives them a safe home. When emotions swirl inside, writing them down brings clarity and relief. Journaling works because the act of writing forces you to slow down and untangle what feels overwhelming. Thoughts that loop endlessly in your head suddenly look different when they're on paper. You see patterns, connections, and hidden truths. It's not about polished sentences. It's about honesty. You might write letters you'll never send, confessions you'll never speak, or dreams you're afraid to admit. The page doesn't judge, and in that non-judgment, healing begins. Therapists often recommend journaling because it externalizes pain, making it manageable. But the emotional value goes deeper. Journaling becomes a dialogue with your own soul. Over time, it helps you see not just the hurt, but the growth that comes from it. Journaling transforms pain into language, and once expressed, pain loses some of its grip. It becomes a story you can shape, rather than a shadow that shapes you. That's why journaling is one of the most powerful and accessible healing tools we have. We don't only suffer from what happened, we suffer from the meaning we attach to it. A breakup can become "I'm unlovable." A failure can become "I'm worthless." These stories are like invisible scripts that keep us trapped in pain. Cognitive reframing is the art of rewriting those scripts. It doesn't deny what happened. It changes the perspective. Instead of "I was abandoned, so I am unworthy," reframing asks, "I was abandoned, but what does that teach me about my strength, my needs, my worth?" CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, has shown how reframing reduces anxiety and depression. But beyond therapy, reframing is an act of empowerment. It puts you back in the author's chair of your own life. Think of it like editing a movie. The raw footage doesn't change, but the way you cut and narrate it creates a completely different story. By reframing, you don't erase pain, but you reclaim control over its meaning. And meaning is what turns scars into wisdom. Healing begins when you realize you don't have to keep telling the old story. You can tell a new one that honors your survival, your resilience, and your worth. Resentment is a heavy stone we carry in our chest. We think holding it keeps us safe, but in reality, it only exhausts us. Forgiveness is the act of putting that stone down. Many people resist forgiveness because it feels like excusing the harm. But forgiveness is not about saying what happened was okay. It's about refusing to let the wound define you any longer. Science confirms the benefits. Forgiveness lowers stress, reduces blood pressure, and improves overall well-being. But the true power of forgiveness is emotional. It gives you back your peace. Imagine drinking poison every day and waiting for someone else to feel the pain. That's what resentment does. Forgiveness, then, is an act of self-liberation. It's not always quick. Forgiveness can take time, layers, and repeated effort. Sometimes it's about forgiving yourself for carrying the resentment so long. But each step toward forgiveness is a step toward freedom. When you forgive, you're not saying the past didn't hurt. You're saying the past no longer controls you. And that shift may be one of the most profound healing acts you will ever experience. We often think of pain as something that lives only in the mind, but trauma doesn't just stay in memories, it lodges in the body. Tight shoulders, clenched jaws, shallow breathing, fatigue that no amount of rest seems to cure. These are the echoes of unhealed emotional pain. Somatic healing recognizes that the body remembers what the mind tries to forget. Breathwork, yoga, and other body-based practices give us tools to release what words alone cannot. When you take deep, intentional breaths, you're not just filling your lungs. You're sending a message to your nervous system. I am safe. Over time, this signal quiets the fight-or-flight response and helps restore balance. Trauma research, including Dr. Stephen Porges' polyvagal theory, shows that breath and body movement directly influence how safe we feel in the world. But beyond theory, the lived experience is profound. People often describe a single session of breathwork as feeling like a decade's worth of weight has been lifted from their chest. Healing doesn't have to begin with words. Sometimes it begins with a breath. And in that breath, the body finally exhales years of unspoken pain. Pain can make us feel alone, even when we're surrounded by people. It whispers no one could ever understand. But neuroscience and psychology remind us that connection is not just comforting. It's essential for healing. Humans are wired for belonging. When we share our pain with someone who listens without judgment, our brains actually calm down. Mirror neurons fire, reminding us we are not isolated in our suffering. This is why therapy, support groups, and deep friendships can feel like lifelines. Healing in community doesn't mean everyone has the answers. It means you are no longer carrying the weight alone. A compassionate witness can validate your experience, remind you of your strength, and reflect hope when you've forgotten it. Think of healing like a broken bone. It will mend over time, but a supportive cast holds it steady so it heals stronger. In the same way, supportive connections help our emotional fractures knit back together. The truth is simple but powerful. No one heals in isolation. Letting others in is not a sign of weakness. It's a vital step toward wholeness. How often do you speak to yourself in ways you'd never speak to a friend? You're so weak. You should be over this by now. This inner critic prolongs suffering. Healing requires a new voice: self-compassion. Self-compassion doesn't mean self-pity. It means treating yourself with the same kindness you would offer someone you love. When pain arises, instead of piling on shame, you say, "It's okay to hurt. I deserve care." Research by Dr. Kristen Neff shows self-compassion lowers anxiety and depression while increasing resilience. But the heart of it isn't data, it's relief. For perhaps the first time, you stop fighting yourself. Acceptance goes hand in hand with compassion. It's not about approving of what happened, but acknowledging it without resistance. Pain says, "This shouldn't have happened." Acceptance says, "It did, and I can still live fully." When you combine compassion and acceptance, you become your own ally instead of your own enemy. And that shift is often what turns wounds into wisdom. Emotional healing may seem purely mental, but the body and mind are inseparable. Sleep, food, and movement are the foundations that make healing possible. Lack of sleep magnifies emotional pain. Research shows even one night of poor rest heightens emotional reactivity. Nutrition also plays a critical role. Diets high in processed foods fuel inflammation, which can worsen anxiety and depression. On the other hand, whole foods rich in vitamins, minerals, and omega-3s support brain health and mood stability. Movement, whether exercise, dance, or even gentle stretching, helps process emotions stuck in the body. Exercise releases endorphins, the body's natural painkillers, and signals to the nervous system that it is safe to relax. These lifestyle shifts may not sound dramatic, but their impact is profound. They create a stable ground so your deeper emotional work can flourish. Imagine trying to rebuild a house on shaky soil. Without rest, nourishment, and movement, healing collapses. With them, it thrives. Your lifestyle is not separate from your emotional journey. It's the soil in which healing takes root. Sometimes, the best medicine is not found in therapy rooms or books, but in the quiet embrace of nature. Walking among trees, listening to birds, feeling the sun on your skin, these moments calm the nervous system in ways science is only beginning to explain. Studies confirm that time in nature lowers cortisol, the stress hormone, and restores a sense of balance. Creative expression works in a similar way. Painting, music, dance, poetry, all of these allow pain to be transformed into beauty. Art gives form to what words cannot. You don't need to be an artist to benefit. The act of creating itself is healing. Together, nature and creativity remind us of something essential. Life is bigger than our wounds. They reconnect us to joy, wonder, and play, qualities often forgotten when we are consumed by suffering. Healing is not just about reducing pain. It's also about rediscovering joy. Nature and creativity open the door to that joy, gently guiding us back to what makes life worth living. We often imagine healing as a straight road with a clear destination. In reality, it's more like a winding path, full of detours, pauses, and returns. Some days you feel light. Other days, the old pain resurfaces. This doesn't mean you failed. It means you're human. Healing is less about arriving and more about continuing. It's the daily choice to breathe through discomfort, to write when words feel stuck, to forgive when anger returns, to keep showing up for yourself. The journey is lifelong because life keeps offering new challenges. But that's not discouraging, it's empowering. Each time you face pain and choose #healing, you build resilience. You become more grounded, more compassionate, more whole. Think of healing like tending a garden. Some seasons are abundant, others feel barren. But with steady care, growth always returns. Healing is not about erasing scars. It's about integrating them until they become part of your strength. The journey of healing emotional pain is not easy, but it is profoundly worth it. Through mindfulness, journaling, reframing, forgiveness, breathwork, supportive connections, self-compassion, and lifestyle practices, you create a path back to yourself. Healing doesn't mean pretending the past never hurt. It means the past no longer has the power to define your future. It means choosing peace over bitterness, resilience over despair, and wholeness over fragmentation. Every step you take toward healing is a declaration. I am more than my pain. And with each declaration, you return, not to who you were before the pain, but to someone wiser, softer, and stronger. Frequently asked questions. 1. How long does emotional healing take? Healing has no set timeline. For some, changes are felt quickly. For others, it's a slow unfolding. It depends on the depth of the wound, the practices you use, and the support you have. 2. Can I heal emotional pain on my own? Yes, many practices like mindfulness, journaling, and self-compassion can be done independently. However, therapy or supportive communities often accelerate the process. 3. Why does old pain still affect me today? Unhealed pain stays active in the nervous system and shapes your thoughts and behaviors. Until acknowledged and processed, it continues to influence your present life. 4. Is forgiveness necessary for healing? Forgiveness isn't always immediate, and it's not about excusing harm. It's about freeing yourself from resentment so the wound no longer controls you. 5. What's the very first step to begin healing? The first step is awareness, admitting you are carrying pain and deserve to heal. From there, even small actions, like mindful breathing, can start the journey.